So this book is called The Underage CEOs. It released just 2 weeks back, and so far the reader feedback has been excellent, and I'm so gratified by that. The book is about young entrepreneurs, an interesting set of 11 different ventures set up by youngsters in their 20s. That's what I've chronicled in this book. So like the subtitle of the book itself is Fascinating Stories of Young Indians Who Became CEOs in Their 20s. So I look at entrepreneurship as something where you chase your passion, chase your idea. Yeah, you have an idea and you want to really do something about it. So this book is all about those guys who've started becoming entrepreneurs, who've set up their own ventures earlier in their life. They are the guys who say, I don't want to wait till I'm 30, 35, 45. I want to do it right now. So all the stories that I've mentioned or written about in this book are of those guys who finished college, post-graduation or graduation, and straight away taken the plunge. They've said, look, I have an idea and this has come from my observation of my life, and therefore I need to do something about it. I don't want to get into the rut of a corporate job. I don't want to do things that everybody is doing just for the sake of doing it. So I want to do what I really think is right for me today. And that's how they've set up their ventures when they were 21, 22, 24, and I found that very fascinating. So I thought, hey, I must write a book about these guys. They're doing some very interesting stuff, and I should take these stories to a larger audience. So that's how this book, The Underage CEOs, came about. I've picked entrepreneurs of various kinds. See, I've used certain filters. I didn't want to write about only success stories. I didn't want to write about only big city entrepreneurs. I definitely did not want to write about people who came out of elite institutions, elite colleges like the IITs or the IIMs. So none of the people featured in this book is from an IIT or an IIM. There are stories from big cities like Pune, Delhi and Bangalore, but at the same time there are stories from Hubli. Many people don't even know where Hubli is. Hubli is a small town in North Karnataka. All right. Then there is a story from a village deep inside Jharkhand. And there is a story from which started in Manipal. So there is a mix of industries or domains. There's a mix of men and women. There is a mix of towns, big towns and small towns. And I think all of them are doing some fascinating work in whatever domains they've chosen. I'll tell you I'll give you examples of what kind of domains there are. So there's this girl in Bombay who's trying to bring back the concept of urban farming or kitchen gardens, into the cramped spaces of a Bombay house. How do you create a kitchen garden in a 500 square foot flat? She's doing it. There's a guy in Delhi who's made gifting of plants a very cool thing. He's saying while everybody traditionally gives gadgets or sweets, chocolates, why not gift plants on a birthday or a wedding or an anniversary? Beautiful. There's a guy in Pune who realized from his teenage that he's very interested in dance. Dance is his life. So he's converted that passion into a business, and it's a scalable, growing business. There's someone in Bangalore who's doing extremely interesting stuff on education, and he set up a portal which caters to young parents. It's a resource portal for young parents. So a wide range of stuff. Oh, and then I must mention this guy who's an ethical hacker. Ethical hacker based in Calcutta. Ethical hacking is practically unknown in India, right? So he's right at the cutting edge. So extremely interesting stories. And through this, I want to tell people out there, I want to tell youngsters in every corner of India that, hey, there are stories all around you. You just have to identify your passion and you can just set up your own venture. That's what I want to tell them. I used, I think, 2 or 3 methods. One is I was an entrepreneur myself, and I've been mentoring some startups. So I was already present in the startup circles, right? So that was my starting point. So I wrote to them, spoke to them, emailed and blah, blah. And I've also been over the years in touch with organizations like National Entrepreneurship Network and TIE. So I reached out to people there also. And from there, I got my first list. And from the first list, I got my second list because I then snowballed. So if I know 10 people, let's say, I would ask each of those 10 people to put me in touch with other entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs they knew. So then it slowly gained momentum, it kind of spiraled. And I ended up with a list of maybe 70, 80 young entrepreneurs finally. That was my long list. That I then evaluated using certain criteria and brought it down to, I think, 11 ventures, yes. So this book is all about 11 ventures that I finally chose. Interesting, very interesting question. The question I look for whenever I go and meet people. Success is traditionally defined by, in the entrepreneurial world, especially in the recent times, there is this enormous focus on fundraising. Have you raised your seed funding and then Series A and Series B? Yeah, so that's one track of success. And today I'm seeing that more and more people are being valued like that, are being evaluated and, whether and branded as success or failures based on that. That's sad. That's one part. And the other part is then there is this revenue figure and, humongous rate of growth. So much of gross merchandise value, so much of growth and, 200% growth and reaching the first large 1 crore, 2 crore, 10 crore, billion kind of revenue figures. So I didn't want to go by these conventional measures of success. I was very clear about that. So then when you think deeper about what success is all about, you realize that it's very personal. Really very personal. Your definition of success could be different from mine. And therefore, I did not want to apply a one-size-fits-all kind of definition of success. Right from the beginning, I was very clear about that. I just left it to the entrepreneurs, to each one of them to define what their goals are, and based on the goals, they would define whether they're succeeding or failing, right? So that's how I approached the book. The kind of parameters I've looked for in finally shortlisting this, the last list of 11 is, one is they must all have a strong vision for their company. What is it that they want to do? They have to be clear and it has to be strong, big. That's one. Number two is all of them must be doing really meaningful on-ground work. So it shouldn't be all talk and generally carrying out a lot of stuff and attending networking meetings and all that. It shouldn't be about that at all. It should be about what is my vision? Am I day after day progressing towards that vision and am I therefore doing some meaningful work in my field on the ground? Number three was I did not want to write about one-man armies. I wanted to write about people who are creating jobs, at least for so they had to have a small team. That was important for me. And the other thing I looked for was a spread of industries, which I had explained earlier, right? So there is this craze for a few industries today. And from time to time, these flavors change, So today it is food tech, food delivery, grocery delivery, e-commerce, app development for anything. I said, boss, there is enough of, coverage of all this in the media today. No, there is so much more to India. There is so much more to young India. So I was very clear to look for a very different and interesting set of domains. Okay, that was one. Then I was looking for a mix of men and women. And finally, I think I was looking for this big city, small town kind of mix because I know that there is a lot of entrepreneurial action happening in small towns also. And this book, through this book, I wanted to showcase that. Ultimately, what my idea is? My idea my vision for this book is to take it to every college across India, corner to corner. Guwahati to Kanyakumari to some corner of Gujarat to J&K, really. And when I go there, I did not want to tell them only stories about app building or revenue generation or about, something that's happening in Bangalore, a big city like Bangalore. No. I wanted this book to be representative of what's really happening in India. Growth is important because I think it's a fundamental human trait to look for growth. If there is no growth, I think there is stagnation, and stagnation is quickly followed by decay and death. That's one part. But I leave it to the people to define what success is, what their rate of growth should be. So goals are unique, therefore, and also risk appetite, growth appetite. There's something called a risk appetite and a growth appetite, right? That differs from person to person. So while growth in itself is important, I did not look for a particular measure of growth. So there are the companies featured, the ventures featured in my book have grown at different paces. They've reached different milestones over different periods of time. And there are some who are risk averse, there are some who are more for risk, adventurous. So I've covered all of these, keeping in mind the fact that growth and success and risk are all very, very individual decisions. These are all new ideas. I wanted this to represent new India because this is what I think needs chronicling. This is what needs showcasing. A lot has already been written about old world industries, right? So I did not want to write again about that. At the same time, let me just repeat, all these stories are not about the internet technology or tech. It is all about new India and the new Indians' way of thinking, but there is great representation of non-tech businesses also. I don't think there could have been a better word. There could definitely have been different words. In fact, when I was brainstorming or thinking to myself about what kind of a title I need to have for this, I ran through some 20, 30 names. And some of these I discussed with my publisher, some of these I ditched myself. So overall, yes, about 25 to 30 names. But none of them was really, one, catchy enough, because when you want to title a book and put it on a store somewhere, it has to grab the attention of the guy who comes to the store, right? So it has to be catchy. That's one. Number two is, I looked at the themes that other books on entrepreneurship have taken. So typically in the media and in other books on entrepreneurship, you will see that courage, passion, dreaming, risk and stuff like that. These are the leading themes, so their titles also would reflect these leading themes. I wanted to move away from all that because I saw another beautiful facet of these guys' lives, the entrepreneurs' lives, which is that they're all enjoying it. Really, really just enjoying it. They're having the time of their lives in spite of the ups and downs, in spite of the failures. So I said, what is it that they've done? They've really just taken charge of their lives very early on. They've taken charge of their lives. So I'm seeing them as actually the CEOs of their lives, even before I see them as CEOs of ventures. I said, what have they done? They've taken the decision of not going with the herd, listening to their heart and really doing what they really want to do. Solving that problem, that idea, whatever, right? So they are masters of their destiny right at a very young age. And that's a great inspiration for so many other youngsters out there. I wanted to bring that out. And then I started looking at them. They are all heads of ventures, right? So they are all CEOs. So then I thought, why not be tongue-in-cheek? When you, exactly like you said, when the conventional perception of a CEO is someone very stuffy, very old, sitting in a corner office, suited, booted, these guys are also CEOs, but they are also very, very different kinds of CEOs, right? A very different kind. I wanted to be very tongue-in-cheek. That's how this title came about. The underage CEOs. And you notice this one, underage, there's a slight humor there, touch of humor. Yeah, so I think there are enough statistics and enough numbers being thrown around about funding and how many startups fail and succeed and blah blah. I think that's always been there in the media, and people who have been watching, reading, it's available in the public domain. I wanted to chronicle the human stories. That's what I think is missing, and that's what I think we need more and more in India. The human stories, the backstories, the journeys, the how, the why, the motivation, the struggle, the failure, the triumph, that is what this book is about. That's what is enormously motivating to a reader also, I felt, number one. Number two is, apart from the stories of these 11 ventures, I've also got a chapter on funding. How would you fund a venture? What are the perspectives? What are some of the things that you need to keep in mind? How can you raise funds? When should you raise funds from external sources? And when do you know that bootstrapping is the right way? Using your own internal funds. So these are all questions that are very, confuse an early stage entrepreneur or someone who wants to set up business. He always ends up thinking, where will I get the money from? So I wanted to put that down in black and white. Therefore, there is an interview with a leading, well-known investor called Mr. Sanjay Anandaram, who presents his perspective as an investor on fundraising. And then there is an interview with another person who is an entrepreneur. Yeah, and he's gone through this fundraising journey. His name is Mr. Anish Basu Roy. So there are two perspectives on fundraising. One from the investor's point of view and one from the entrepreneur's point of view. So that's what this book is about. I just mentioned this earlier in the panel, but I think it's very important for us to listen to our hearts and to just cut out the noise. If we were to just do that and sit with ourselves, our soul, our heart is really speaking to us. We're just not hearing it. We are hearing our parents, our peers, colleagues, college mates, teachers. We are hearing everybody else. We are just not hearing ourselves. I think that's a crime. I think that's just something that we should correct ourselves. Number one. Number two is that this whole thing about corporate experience and you need to have certain corporate experience before you do your own thing is overrated. I think that the time for that has gone. Right now, if you're passionate about something, if you realize and listen to yourself, realize that this is what you have a flair for, this is what you want to do, I think you can start at the age of 18, 20, 24, whatever that right time is for you. You decide the right time, but all I'm saying is just listen to yourself. Don't listen to anybody else. And don't think you need to have a house, you need to have a big bank balance or a corporate journey before you start up. That's it.